Okay, this is Mr. Renfro, and we're going to do a video today on ratios, a short instructional video on ratios. A ratio, guys, is just a way of comparing two amounts, quantities, two amounts of something. We can write ratios three different ways, okay? We can write ratios as a fraction. In this case, we've got 4/5 in this example. Or we can write it with the word 2. Or we can write it like it looks like a clock with a colon. But these all say 4 to 5. These all say 4 to 5. Now, a ratio, like I said, is a way of comparing things. Okay, it's a way of comparing two things. The two things could be boys to girls. It could be something that simple. Okay? So, let's look at this. A ratio is a relationship between two things. Whatever comes first in the relationship comes first. We have to have it first. We leave it first. And whatever comes last in the relationship, we have to leave last. Example, boys to girls in the class is 10 to 12. Okay? Now, if I asked you what came first, you would say boys. Boys come first. Okay? What came last? Girls came last. And they're separated by the word 2. 2 is a very important word with ratios because that's usually what separates our ratio is the word 2. Now, in the numbers here, 10 comes first and 12 comes last. Well, 10 has to go with boys because boys is first. 12 has to go with girls because girls is last. So the ratio of boys to girls is 10 to 12. That's one way to write it. Or 10 to 12. It's the second way to write it. Third way to write it is with the colon, where it looks like a digital clock. Okay? So the ratio is 10 to 12 in this case. Remember, whatever comes first has to be first, and whatever comes last has to be last. Now, here's a question. It says there are 12 students taking biology and 10 students taking algebra 1. What is the ratio of students taking biology to students taking algebra 1? Okay, well, first of all, the first sentence is information. The second sentence is the question, which is the most important thing to answer. Well, what ratio does it ask for in the question? It says, what is the ratio of students taking biology to students taking algebra 1? Okay, and it's separated by the word 2. Our ratio is usually separated by that word. Okay, so what is that ratio? Well, let's go back up to the information. Well, first is biology. Well, how many kids took biology? 12 are taking biology. So the first number has to be 12. Okay. The second number is how many students are taking 2 of the students taking algebra 1. Well, there's 10 taking algebra 1. That's where we get the 10. Sorry, right here. Okay. Okay, so the ratio of students taking biology to students taking algebra is 12 to 10. Now that's improper, and that's okay. Ratios can be improper. It's okay to have an improper ratio. There can be a larger number on top than on the bottom because if you say the thing that has the most first, it has to come first. And biology had more students than algebra 1. So we had to list an improper fraction, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, here's another problem. The soccer team has 12 members, and 5 of them are girls. What is the ratio of boys to total team members? Okay, well, the most important ratio is the question. What is the ratio of boys to total team members? So what comes first in the relationship? Boys. So we have to do boys first. Well, Mr. Renfro, in this information up here, doesn't say anything about boys. But it says 5 of them are girls, and there's 12 members on the team. So we're going to have to do a little math there. There's 12 people on the team, and we take away 5 of them being girls. That leaves us with 7 that are boys. So 7 would be the number for the boys. 2, what was the total people on the team? 12. So that's my ratio, 7 to 12. Again, there's 3 ways to write it. Okay, let's try some more examples. All right, on this one it says write the following ratios, as fractions. So we're going to write them as fractions, and then we'll reduce them in just a minute. But to start with, let's just write a ratio. Well, the first ratio, what comes first? Stars. Stars to smiley faces. So we have to do stars first. So let's count the stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it even has a 6 out here. So you know how many stars there are. There's 6. 2 smiley faces. Well, it says there's 10 of them. So 6 to 10. Let's write it as a fraction because that's what it asks us to do. Okay, that's 6 to 10. Now, on your chart, could that be reduced? Yes, it can. If you go to the 2's column and find the 6 and the 10, it can be reduced to 3/5. We call these equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios. Equivalent means they're equal to one another. Okay? Now, in that same example up above, let's think about it. So for every 6 stars, there's 10 smiley faces. Well, what about this? For every 3 stars, there should be 5 smiley faces. For every 3 stars, there should be 5 smiley faces. And there are. Okay? So that's equal. That's an equal ratio. Okay? Very good. All right. Let's try another. Let's try the second one, number 2. Number 2 says flowers. Go up here to the top. There are 8 flowers. 2 stars. There are 6 stars. Now, that's an improper fraction. Mr. Renfro, this is not going to be on my chart. You're right, it's not going to be on the chart. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this fraction. We're going to make 8, 6, 6 eighths. We can find 6 eighths on the chart. When we find 6 eighths on the chart, the 2's, it can reduce to 3/4. But then we got to remember to flip it back. And when we flip it back, it'll be 4/3. Okay? So 4/3 is the simplified answer. 8 flowers to 6 stars can be reduced, the simplest form, to 4/3. All right, now let's try flowers to smiley faces. All right, so flowers is 8, smiley faces is 10. So it's an 8 to 10 ratio. All right. Can that be reduced on the chart? Sure can. Go to your 2's, and that reduces to 4/5. In other words, up there at the top, for every 8 flowers, there's 10 smileys. Well, for every 4 flowers, there are 5 smileys. For every 4 flowers, there are 5 smileys. Okay, so 4 to 5 is equal to 8 to 10. Everybody's getting that. All right, got another one. Smiley faces to stars. So that would be a 10 smiley faces to stars. Smiley faces comes first, so you have to do it first. There's 10 of those. Stars comes last, so you have to do it last. So that's a 10 to 6. Well, Mr. Renfro, I don't see 10 and 6 on my chart. That's because you always have to say the smaller number first. So we're going to flip it. 6 tenths, that is on the chart. When we reduce that, it's 3/5. Then you have to flip it back because it has to be improper. Because it started out improper, it has to end improper. Okay, so 5/3 is the equivalent ratio for 10 6. Those are equal. Okay? So this is just a small introduction to ratios. I hope you guys have understood what we've talked about, and if not, go back and watch it again or ask me questions in the chat.